But speaking of basketball, Dan, I was thinking about the Warriors because Curry received his 1-year, $62.6 million contract extension. I think a day preceding the Ayuk deal coming down. I don't know if I just took his lead from one Wardell, but he gets the max, and that's the only thing he can sign for is 1 year. There's a rule, I think, that after age 35, you can't sign more than a 1-year contract extension, or you can't have a contract longer than 3 years at that age. So he gets his max. And I'm thinking about, why is it significant for the Warriors? Because if I just asked you this offseason, like, is Curry going to sign his extension? I'm assuming your answer would be yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be age 37 or 38. He's going to make more money in a single season than he ever has. And I think the Warriors are happy to give him the blank check that we've been talking about for the past couple hours. But I also...
It's not blank. There's a number on it.
Well, but whatever the largest number he could sign for, that's what he was going to get. If the max was $70 million, I think he would receive $70 million.
Because I think he's worth $100 million.
Well, according to the Warriors and their latest net worth evaluation, he's probably worth more than that. He's helped this team grow from a sub-billion-dollar franchise to one of the top 3 most valuable in the world. So, yeah, Curry's worth it. Curry's worth every single penny. Even though he might not be the player he was a couple of years ago, and certainly won't be that same player in a couple seasons, in my opinion. But I think it's significant for the Warriors because it does 2 things. First, I think it makes it easier for the Golden State Warriors to lure or try and attract another big-name star. I'm not going to use the LM word, but another big-name star to Golden State. That's first. Secondly, and more importantly, the last 2 seasons for the Warriors entering the year have had members of the Big 3 and their contracts be questions and storylines and, quite frankly, distractions the entire year. It was Draymond 2 years ago, and whether he was going to opt out or opt in and what he was trying to get. And there were questions about it. And, of course, I think it impacted maybe the way he handled himself off the court. Last season clearly impacted Klay Thompson, and we've now found out the reason why, because there was not a two-way street with him and the Warriors. Curry, by signing this extension, relieves us of all of those conversations. We don't have to have them anymore, and we don't have to ask him what his future is going to be. Because if he doesn't sign that extension by October 21st, which is the deadline, then every single time there is a bit of a valley in the Warriors' roller coaster ride of a regular season, people are going to bring up the question, well, what are they going to do with Steph? Well, now we know what they're going to do with Steph. He's going to be a Warrior, and he's going to be one, hopefully, for the remainder of his career.
Well, that's because he's Steph Curry. And when you talk about Draymond Green and Klay Thompson, those are good players. I wouldn't even consider Steph Curry a player at this point when you're talking about contract and negotiations. He is symbolic of the franchise. He's emblematic of who that team is, who the NBA has been, quite frankly, over the last 10 years. He takes on a whole nother persona. Like the idea of re-signing Steph Curry, no brainer isn't even an apt description from so many different levels, especially when you're talking about the finances as it relates to Joe Lacob. Because nobody prints money globally like that of Steph Curry. And the minute Steph Curry is no longer with the Warriors, the minute he takes off that uniform or the talk that, oh, he wants to play with a winner, and should he go somewhere else, the other uniform he puts on, suddenly they get all that merch revenue. They get all that TV menu. They get all that money that's allocated to just one man that you can't really even quantify at the end of the day. So when you talk about Steph Curry, you're talking about truly one. I want to dust off that guy who wrote the article. This is why I said a couple of weeks back.
You out there listening?
That this is an athlete that is one of the greatest to ever do it. And I mean that across the board in any sport. And I don't mean just respective in terms of what he does on the floor, But the reason why I mentioned Muhammad Ali and Steph Curry, it's because of what it is that he does and the way he conducts himself as a person off the court. Like there have been better basketball players. You could say Michael Jordan's better than Steph Curry, but nobody has been, well, Jordan's been a pretty good ambassador, but I don't think there's anybody. But Jordan was there's never been any warts on Steph Curry. He didn't have this little gambling thing that he went through a couple of years, right? He never said, like, Republicans wear shoes too. He's evaded all of that. Like, he's so rare in terms of an athlete who's in the top 10 in the respective sport and then off the court doing everything the right way. And what does that mean for the franchise and the team you're playing for? It means money. Because men, women, and children and people who are marginal sports fans are going to buy your jersey, going to go to your games, going to watch games to follow Steph Curry. So when you talk about re-signing him, I don't even think you can compare and contrast to a Draymond Green, to a Klay Thompson. Those are all good players, all part of the foundation that's been this winning franchise over the last decade. But when it comes to Steph Curry, it's a completely different planet as far as what it is that he means not only to the Warriors, but I think generally speaking to the sport itself.
No, I agree wholeheartedly with everything you're saying, and I don't think there is a better ambassador. The only other one that I could think of would be LeBron. But I think Curry showed us during the Olympics just who the heart of Team USA was. It's him. But I also think it's important because, again, it alleviates a distraction for this season. And if the Warriors are to truly be better than they were last year, which the front office indicates they believe they can, then there can't be extra stuff not having to do with basketball. You know, there can't be off-the-court issues and people pouting, people talking about roles, people asking questions about futures. And that, I guess, all is, going to be dictated by the win-loss record. If the Warriors start 10-15, maybe it comes up. But I just feel like at the beginning of the year, if he had not signed the extension, that's what everybody would be wondering. Would Steph Curry consider not retiring a Golden State Warrior? And I think he values wearing one jersey for his entire career. And that's another thing it told me also, and why he is different. Now, I don't believe he's perfect, but I feel like I know what he values. And staying with a franchise for the entirety of his career is something I believe he holds close.
The way I interpret it is that, yes, winning championships are important to him, but what it is that you just laid out is even more so. And that is he's acutely aware in terms of his legacy and what it is that Kobe did. And you can name on one hand the athletes that have played for one team, and he wants to be one of those. And not only that, and he'll never admit this, and you might disagree, but I said this all along before he signed that contract, that he's not all about winning championships. That if the Golden State Warriors are competitive next year, they can get to the playoffs, maybe steal a series, that's good enough for Steph. The idea that I have got to go out with another ring and this whole concept of you can't do that to Steph. How many times have I heard that? This isn't fair to Steph. Listen, he understands where the Warriors are at. And the Warriors aren't winning another title in the next 2 years. This is just not happening. I'm sorry. I hate to deflate that bubble, but and it wasn't going to happen with Paul George. It wasn't going to happen with Lauri Markkanen. I think that Steph recognizes where the team is at. It's in a bit of a reset, rebuild, however it is that you want to phrase it. But Steph is also telling everybody that he's ensconced in the area. He's part of the Bay Area. His kids live here. They've grown up here. He's not going anywhere. Just do me a favor and don't make me Kobe the last 4 years of his career where you were a lottery team and you were a joke in L.A. Can we just be competitive?
Well, I mean, look, I would push back on that. First and foremost, the reason why those Kobe teams were as bad as they were is, Kobe tore his Achilles. He wasn't a very good player down the stretch of his career because of injury. Curry, knock on wood, has not had a career-altering injury like that. And as long as he doesn't, I feel pretty good about his ability to stay at a high level. I would push back on him not having a standard, as far as winning is concerned. I think if he didn't believe that the Warriors couldn't be competitive, and
do you think he believes they can, in his heart of hearts, they can win the title next year?
No. Not as currently constructed. I don't believe that he thinks that. But by signing this contract, he also gives the Warriors more time to try and maneuver to put pieces around him to compete for a championship. I think the Warriors, now look, if they start hot, maybe there is somebody that becomes available at the deadline. I think that they haven't pushed all their chips in yet as far as trade pieces. I'd be curious to see what they do with Kuminga this offseason, who's eligible for a contract extension. I think the way that they have pushed Brandon Podziemski on seemingly everyone in the media is very interesting as far as how highly they value him. And the piece that Slater wrote, I think it was last week, about how Podziemski had gotten confirmation from Dunleavy and Lacob that he was not going anywhere this offseason. I think that means the Warriors value him highly. I think it's a bit premature, but they clearly do. They still have trade chips to use, and they haven't cashed them in yet. And I think that Curry, by signing that one-year deal, is doing all the things we're talking about. He wants to be a one-team player. I think he wants to cement his legacy. I think he still wants to compete. But he also is giving the Warriors a little bit more time to get help around him. I don't think he's satisfied with the Kobe riding off into the sunset just with a 25-win basketball team.
Well, no, I said he doesn't want to be Kobe. I think what he wants the Warriors to do is to maybe give the outside chance that we could win this thing as a long shot, but just be competitive. Let's get into the playoffs and be a good team. Let's not be a lottery team. I think Steph recognizes he's getting older, he's slowing down, but the idea that you're going to get a player in here, or that you're going to be able to bring in a couple of players and we're going to be a championship type team. Looking at the landscape of the Western Conference, I think he realizes that that's not going to happen. But as you get older, it just becomes more a quality of life. That's as important as anything, if not more so. And then we sort of mischaracterize and misjudge a lot of this, that Steph is all about winning a title, that he may get up and go. He may go to wherever because he wants to win that championship. Yeah, same with LeBron. It's true. But you know what? LeBron, at the end of the day, he's like, I want to win titles, but I'm cool in Brentwood, brother. I'm cool having my production company and being in Los Angeles and all my ties to Hollywood. That also means something. Do I want to win a title? Sure. But some of these other things in life now have become almost on par with winning. And I know Steph wants to win. That's what drives these guys. It's what gets them out of bed in the morning. That's why they're as good as they are. Does he want to win a title? Yeah, but as the older you get, you begin to recognize, my kid wants to go to whatever, Monte Vista High School. And I don't want to leave, for 4 months of the year or 6 months of the year and play basketball and not be here in San Francisco in the Bay Area and watch them grow up. Whatever it is, I think quality of life really factors in now more so than maybe in years past.
But I also think he's realistic. Like winning a chip at all costs is not the most important thing to him, but it isn't as if it's not a really, really important thing. He wants to win every single year, but he's realistic that you can't. I mean, even some of the greatest Warriors teams he's been a part of have not won championships. So I think he gets it. He gets it in a way that a lot of athletes don't. And in doing that, he has made himself, that's where he separates himself in my mind from LeBron. He's not a guy that jumps ship. He's not a guy that throws teammates or coaches under buses. He's not a guy that gets people fired. He's not a guy that will come out and talk bad about an individual. He won't go at media members. He's just different. And that's why he is the ambassador that you believe is on the same par with some of the most historical figures in sports.
I'm trying to think of like an athlete. Who can you think of off the top of your head? Because Muhammad Ali was certainly controversial. Let's stop with the comparisons between him and Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali, that's a whole other show for another time. But as far as quote unquote doing it the right way, keeping your nose clean and just being a good guy, as well as being one of the best at your sport, who would you compare him to? I don't think there's anybody else out there, quite frankly.
For their entire career? I mean, well, first of all, there's just not a lot of players of his caliber that have been with the same team for as long as he has. They got Duncan, but Duncan didn't play in the same market with the same set of eyes that Curry did. But I think he's similar. I'm only really familiar with the tail end of his career. Elway, maybe, and the fact that he also was a part of the Broncos front office indicates just how much they value him in Denver. But Denver's not a market like the Bay Area. So I do think that it's more difficult for Curry to navigate that space.
Yeah, but even Elway, again, if you were to compare him to Steph Curry, who has no blemishes on the resume, Elway was drafted by the Baltimore Colts and refused to go. Like, I don't want to play in Baltimore. He was the first guy to say, he was sort of Eli Manning before Eli Manning was drafted by the Chargers, remember? And he said, no, we're not going there.
Well, that was his dad.
His dad, but also,
Yeah.
And I think Elway was very similar in that I'm not going to Baltimore. Why? I don't want to play there. And so, he got his way. So there's nothing wrong with that. My point being is that, again, you can't find any of that with Steph Curry. Like, there's none of that in his career, both on and off the court.